Leo John Dehon was a child of his time, a man who knew how to read the challenges of his context and propose ideas and answers valid even outside this context. Dehon lives in a century of many transformations, influenced by the ideas of the Enlightenment and the French Revolution. European societies in the 19th century experienced the phenomenon of rapid industrialization, the rise of the capitalist economic model, the development of socialist ideas, the secularization of social life, and the emergence of a new working class. The Catholic Church searches for its place and profile in this new reality. The Church's first initiatives of dialogue with the modern world begin. It is a century of the laity acting as protagonists within the Church, of the appearance of countless lay associations and fraternities, of the foundation of many religious congregations, especially women dedicated to the apostolic life. The great question that arises in the second half of the 19th century is how to integrate the growing new class of workers into society and into the Church. Various initiatives of charitable works and a Christian reflection on social challenges are born. The pontificate of Leo XIII at the end of the century marks the beginning of the social doctrine of the Church. More and more, the Church understands that there is no need to overthrow the new political system, but to reform and Christianize it. Leo Dehon is born on March 14, 1843, in La Capelle, a small town in the north of France. He is born into a wealthy family where political interest is natural. His grandfather, father, and older brother were mayors of the town. This creates a sensitivity for transformation in society and the Church, and the desire to get involved. Childhood, adolescence, and early youth are a time of preparation for his social apostolate. In 1854, Dehon is sent by his parents to school in Hazebrouck. There he finds an environment of Christian formation and has his first contact with the St. Vincent de Paul Society. In 1859, Dehon moves to Paris to study law. He attends the Church of Saint-Sulpice, where he involves himself in the ecclesial life, becoming part of the Franciscan Third Order, St. Vincent Society, and workers' circles. He develops relationships with Léon Palustre, a friend and roommate with whom he daily studies the Word of God. Together, they make many trips that broaden Dehon's worldview. After his great trip to the Holy Land in 1865, Dehon decides to enter the French seminary in Rome. In addition to his theological studies, he devotes himself to reading social and political economic studies. He makes his novitiate in the Third Order and founds, with other seminary companions, the Opera of St. Catherine, which teaches catechism to poor children. On November 16, 1871, Dehon arrives at the Basilica of Saint-Quentin as the seventh vicar. Saint-Quentin, a city in the north of France, intensely experiences the phenomenon of industrialization, especially with the expansion of the textile industry. In his memoirs, This is how Dehon describes the situation he found there.
I soon found myself in contact with the people. Saint-Quentin has 30,000 of its inhabitants living on daily wages. Salaries rise or fall according to the moment, like the price of slaves. No institution protects the worker. 9/10 of the industrialists and entrepreneurs have no idea of the duties of a boss. Old age, sickness, and many children bring hunger and misery to families. It may be said that no one of the working class goes to church. No elevated sentiments are suggested to these good people, either by the priest or the employer.
Dehon tries to answer this reality with his first social initiatives. The most important, undoubtedly, is the patronage of St. Joseph. Founded as a small work in June 1872, it experiences rapid expansion and becomes an impressive network. By 1874, it already has 440 members, including children, adolescents, and young adult workers. It is open every day and has an average Sunday attendance of 206 people. "Here we play, here we pray," said Allemand, one of the pioneers of the patronage in France. In fact, the patronage offers sports, theatre, music, billiards, a savings bank, library, chapel, conferences, and a workers' club. The work is impossible without the help of numerous lay people, such as Mr. Alfred Santerre, a grocer, and Mr. Filachet, an accountant, who take care of the games, Mr. André, the banker who manages the savings bank, Mr. Julien, the pension manager, and Mr. Guillaume, the trustee of mortgages, who enrolls the young men, and the wine merchant, Mr. Fernand Arrachard, who looks for benefactors. In 1896, Dehon writes in his diary, "Painful decision." After 25 years of foundation, the Bishop of Soissons takes over the patronage of St. Joseph. Dehon adds, "It seemed to me that this work should always remain in the hands of our congregation." Never have in mind only a single work, but the regeneration of society through associations. With this vision, Dehon understands that it is necessary to go further and broaden the horizon. His social commitment is not limited to the works in Saint-Quentin. He founds the Diocesan Office of Works in 1874 and promotes 3 social congresses at the diocesan level, in Liesse in 1875, in Saint-Quentin in 1876, and in Soissons in 1878. He networks with the workers' circles nationwide and with its founders, Albert de Mun and René de la Tour du Pin. He makes contact and collaborates with the most prominent lay people involved in social Catholicism, including Leo Armel, owner of the industry of Val-des-Bois. He joins the group of abbés sociaux, priests involved in Christian democracy. Dehon soon becomes an authority on the congregational movement. From the meetings of social studies with seminarians and young priests that he promotes together with Armel in the early 90s, ecclesiastical congresses are born, in which he actively participates as an organizer, speaker, and president. He also takes part in congresses of the Christian Democrats, the Franciscan Third Order, Eucharistic congresses, and other associations and groups. Dehon is not only a great promoter of social works, but he is also one of the great names in the social thought of the Church of his time. Encouraged by Pope Leo XIII and supported by the Secretary of State, Cardinal Rampolla, Dehon delivers his Roman lectures between 1897 and 1900, the height of his social commitment. The 9 conferences offer an overview of his social thinking in line with Christian democracy. They have great success and echo widely in the Italian and French press of the time.
In the Roman lectures, Father Dehon uses all the doors Rerum Novarum had opened. He draws the picture of a church whose social mission and action and option for the workers, for the poor, have their origin in the Bible, in the example of Christ. He clearly identifies the conflict of interests between workers and employers and the imbalance of powers between the two groups. This is where the state has to step in to protect the workers. And so Dehon draws up a whole catalogue of necessary social legislation, from fair wages, insurance against sickness, to the duration of work. He even goes so far as to demand that workers share in corporate profits. After all, it is their work that makes corporate profits possible. Social, cultural, economical and political participation are the core demands of Dehon. In all of this, he does not lose sight of the fact that all these demands are steps on the way to realizing the reign of the Sacred Heart, a reign of love and justice.
Dehon's social thinking spreads mainly through his writings. He publishes several books on social issues: Christian Social Manual in 1894, Usury in the Present Time in 1895, Our Congresses in 1897, the Pontifical, Political and Social Directives in 1897, Social Catechism in 1898, Wealth, Mediocrity or Poverty in 1899, Christian Social Renewal in 1900, and the Plan of Freemasonry in 1908. One of the main vehicles of his social thought is the monthly publication of the magazine The Reign of the Heart of Jesus in Souls and Societies between 1889 and 1903. He also writes countless articles in other social Catholic magazines, including a special collaboration for many years with a monthly editorial in the Chronicle of the South East. Dehon's social commitment cannot be separated from his great work, the foundation of the Congregation of the Priests of the Sacred Heart of Jesus in 1878. The congregation is born under the roof of another work of a social nature, St. John's College, the fruit of concern for the Christian education of children. It is no coincidence that within a few years of its foundation, Dehonians start several other colleges and seminaries with the same concern. Following the founder's example, many of the first Dehonians engage in social works such as the patronage of St. Joseph, a school for the deaf and dumb in San Medardo, the chaplaincy for industries in Val des Bois and Camaragibe in Brazil, and the hospice for converted prostitutes in Villepinte. Other confrères dedicate themselves to publications like the magazine The Reign of the Sacred Heart in Louvain, or raising funds for works in favour of the poorest. Social commitment is not just the personal initiative of the founder and a few of the first SCJs. The text of the first Latin constitutions of the congregation establishes service of the poor as one of the means to achieve the goal of winning souls for Christ. Thus we read,
"Shall strive with great zeal to achieve this aim by educating the youth destined for priesthood, conducting spiritual exercises, preaching holy missions, and performing every holy service to those persons who, especially because of their humble condition, may need special help."
While it is true that the social commitment of the founder serves as an example for many confrères, it is also true that Dehon has to face the resistance of other confrères who are against his social initiatives. The most concrete case is the opposition of Father Blancal and a group in the San Quentin community who do not recognize this commitment as the original purpose of the congregation. The issue almost causes a fracture in 1896. Dehon nevertheless believes that social action is part of the cult due to the Sacred Heart of Jesus.
Father Dehon was socially and politically committed, that is certain. He wanted to help shape the world out of a Christian responsibility. We know that. But one aspect became clearer to me again in the course of my work with him. Sacred Heart devotion has critical potential. It demands, it encourages standing up for the wounded and vulnerable human being. An early form of an option for the poor is evident here, and a critique of prevailing conditions that are disdainful for humanity. Sacred Heart devotion is often described as restorative, especially in the 19th century. But we can see clearly in Father Dehon that a positive form of critique is encouraged. Spirituality is linked with politics, with an emphasis that something is missing.
In 1912, entering his 70th year, Dehon writes Souvenir, Memories, a sort of memory of his life and works. Here are his words that still echo today for all Dehonians.
I also wanted to contribute to the advancement of the simple people through the reign of justice and Christian charity. I have dedicated a good part of my life to this, first in the works at Saint-Quentin, then my publications on social studies, and my conferences in Rome and elsewhere, in my participation in the series of congresses. Leo XIII was kind to consider me one of the faithful interpreters of his social encyclicals, but even there, the work must continue.